Hello everyone, and welcome back to Americanism Zoomer. Today we are going to look into the fictional book Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson. Now, if you are at all familiar with this story, then you will know that this is a fictional story, and thus it is an odd topic for a history YouTuber to talk about. But that is exactly why I am bringing up this topic. The story of Kidnapped has historical facts all over the storyline that have been forgotten in the public mind, and the historians and historical educators have done a very poor job reminding the public about these facts. The forgotten facts that I am referencing are the forgotten white slaves of America. These were young white adults and children who were forced into indentured servitude in America. I just made my previous video on this topic, so check that out if you want to learn more, or check out this book White Cargo for more information. Many Americans could give you basic facts about the African slave trade. Very few Americans even know that there were white slaves in America. But if we would have read the Scottish boys novel Kidnapped, then we would be a little bit more educated on this topic. The novel Kidnapped was written by Robert Louis Stevenson. He is probably best known for Treasure Island or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but Kidnapped is probably his third most popular novel. It was written in the 1880s, but the story itself takes place in the 1750s, before America has become an independent country. The story follows a young adult named David Balfour, who is supposed to inherit a large noble estate. But instead he is betrayed by his uncle and is, you guessed it, kidnapped. Now the story makes it very clear that he is kidnapped for the purpose of being sold as a plantation worker in the colonies. So in other words, he is getting sold into slavery. The novel makes this point very clear. Here's a quote of David Balfour talking to a young cabin boy on one of these ships guilty of kidnapping people. When David asks the cabin boy if his life is hard, the cabin boy responds, "There's worse off than me. There's the 20-pounders, oh laws. You should see them taking on. Why, I've seen a man as old as you, I dare say. Ah, and he had a beard too. Well, as soon as we cleared out of the river, he had the drug out of his head. My, how he cried and carried on. I made a fine fool of him, I tell you, and there's little uns too. Oh, little by me, I tell you. I keep 'em in order. We carry little uns. I have a rope's end of my own to wallop 'em." And so he ran on until it came into me on what he meant by 20-pounders, were those unhappy criminals who were sent overseas to slavery in North America, or the still more unhappy innocents who were kidnapped or trepanned, as the word went, for private interest or vengeance. Being kidnapped was one way to end up as a slave, but the novel also very quickly goes over another way you could be sold as a slave in America, and that was as a criminal. And a common crime in Scotland during this time period was carrying a gun or weapon. In the story, David Balfour comes across a Highlander and notices he is carrying a weapon and makes these quick but important comments. "I saw the steel butt of a pistol sticking from under the flap of his coat pocket. To carry such a thing meant a fine of 15 pounds sterling upon a first offense, and transportation to the colonies upon a second." In summary, white slavery used to be a fact in the public conscience, but is no longer taught, and you have to scour educational content to find a mention of it. You could use your critical thinking skills and wonder why that is. But the other takeaway from this video is that reading historical fiction is also important. You can learn a lot from these intelligent authors, even though the primary purpose of the novel is for entertainment. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.